Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. Super excited to have you here tonight with our amazing guest, Mrs. Valerie Mrak.
It's Mrak.
Mrak.
Like miraculous.
Oh, I love that. I'll never forget it now. I promise. Miraculous. I have miraculous people on my show every week, and Valerie is just more so. I'm just going to share a little bit about Valerie here. Valerie is a transformational specialist who takes exhausted, frustrated relationships and helps her clients transform them into productive partnerships. She empowers teams and individuals to move from inaction and infighting to action and creative calibration. She is a TEDx and international speaker, award-winning filmmaker, and leadership coach who has empowered thousands across the globe to transform their business and personal relationships through creating mutual possibilities. A best-selling author, Valerie has been featured on podcasts, radio, and publications such as Chicago Tribune, and has more than a dozen years' experience coaching, speaking, and training. Her clients have included AT&T, the National Park Service, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Rotary International and PBS. She is most proud of her work with her Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and several other Nobel Peace Prize winner. So tonight I would love to welcome Valerie to the stage here. Valerie, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and to share some of the things I've learned along the path of my life.
Yes. And folks, her story is absolutely amazing. Like completely. You'll be spellbound the entire night. We have on here with us Russ. It is going to be miraculous. So
Great,
with that, Valerie, tell us a little bit about your overcoming story here.
Well, I'll start where I was as a young adult. I was a documentary filmmaker that was my first career and took me all the way up into my 50s and beyond. And I was one of the highest paid in Chicago, producer directors, and I worked for corporations. I had great clients. I was a contractor, so I had a whole slew of subcontractors that worked for me. And I helped to also found a local of a international women in film trade organization. And everything looked great from the outside. But inside, I was always unsure of myself, mad at somebody. Somebody was mad at me. My marriage was falling apart. We had been together 11 years, and I didn't think it was going to last another year. And a partner and I were fighting, and I thought that a colleague was cheating me, and I felt helpless to address that. And it just, things were a mess. Looked great. I was miserable. And I was doing work for organizations like AT&T and Waste Management and other Fortune 500 companies. And then I'd go off and I'd be making a documentary passion project. I love documentaries because they allowed me to tell stories that I feel needed to be told that weren't being told. And it also helped to give voice to the voiceless.
I love that. I love that.
And the whole time I didn't realize that in a way, my voice was also being suppressed. And then my favorite project that we did of all of the projects that I've done was called Shadow over Tibet. And that took us all the way to the foothills of the Himalayas, where we got to sit face to face with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama.
Wow.
And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I asked His Holiness, "What is peace?" And he looked right at me And he said, there's external peace, peace toward fellow man, peace toward environment, peace toward, I forgot now, peace toward fellow man, peace toward animals, peace toward the environment. But before you have that external peace, you must have a zone of peace in your heart.
Ooh.
That, it both threw me and lit me up. I realized I didn't have a zone of peace in my heart. And from that moment, I realized I couldn't blame my husband. I couldn't blame my partner. I couldn't blame my colleague for everything that was breaking down in my life, because guess what? I was the common denominator to all that mess.
I love that you said that. I just want to, there was so much that came up in what you said. And this is the second time I've heard this part, and I got glory bumps again the second time, folks. Could you imagine just staring His Holiness in the face and just asking those questions? To me, that would be A, remarkable. And B, when you have that aha moment, knowing that, you know, like you said, you can be ticked off at everybody else, but what's the common denominator in that? And unfortunately, we have one finger pointing this way, but three back at us, right? And I know that's old school, and we're taught that in school, and then, you know, life happens and we forget about that. But if we take ownership of ourselves, that's the most important part, I believe.
Exactly. Yes.
And I just love that.
So that started me on kind of a passion project. It was going to be a documentary film, another documentary that I called Journey to Peace, because I knew I was on that journey. And I figured that there were other people in the world that were on that journey too. People that hadn't had great childhoods, or people that never figured out how to grow their conversations up, and things like that people needed it. So I began to ask people, literally people in elevators, people on the sidewalk waiting for the street light to change, everywhere around the world. I asked everyday people and not so everyday people, what is peace? And it was interesting what I got. The answers that I got mostly were, well, oh, it's when my kids aren't fighting. Or it would be something like, oh, it's the feeling I get when I'm walking in the woods. Like it was a state of being brought on from the outside, or it was a set of circumstances. And then I happened to speak to some Nobel Peace Prize winners. Now, these Nobel Peace Prize winners, a lot of people say, well, those are Nobel Peace Prize winners. I'm not a Nobel Peace Prize winner. They're something else, right? Mm-hmm. They're not me. Well, these particular Nobel Peace Prize winners, except for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, were everyday average citizens living in an area of conflict, that they simply stood up and used their voice. And it's not like they didn't have issues, they didn't have problems, they didn't have fears, but they stood up for peace and had consequences to that, etc. But their standing up and speaking up created peace in their area of conflict. And that's why they got the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, literally, one was a secretary at a brewery. Another one was a waitress.
Awesome.
Another person, was an attorney. And one was an art teacher.
Wow.
These were everyday people. And I thought, oh my goodness. And they weren't they weren't so different from any of us.
Right. And
so some I spent a lot of time with, and some I got to spend a couple hours with. And then I also happened to be at a fundraiser one day for some nonviolent campaign. And I happened to be sitting next to a gentleman, and I was telling him this story, basically. And it turns out that he was, or is, a former violent offender. Like, no kidding. He went to jail for to prison for a 35-year sentence for violence. And he had transformed his life. So here's this kid, he went to jail when he was a kid on his 17th birthday, facing 35 years in prison. And he managed to not only turn his own life around, but turn the lives around for many people in the prison, which is a whole nother story. We could spend a whole hour on his story. But what he said about creating peace and what the Nobel Peace Prize winners had said about creating peace mirrored each other.
Wow. Wow. And I think right now in the world, the way the world is right now, we all need peace. Yes. Like it's funny. Today I got back-to-back phone calls about things that I will have to say put me into a tizzy for a minute, because I was just thinking there is no way that in the world that this could happen. And people are allowing this to happen. And then, I had a conversation with our mutual friend, Kimberly Genovese, and she instantly put me at peace. And I was just like, okay, if all else fails, you go into prayer. Because, and that's, to me, that's where I find my peace. But I mean, I'm sure different, and I'm sure that's where you're going to go into next. where they said they found their peace.
Well, each story is an individual story, and I'm not going to go into their stories. Tonight, we don't have enough time. If we were doing a 5-day workshop, I could go into those stories.
Never know. That could be happening.
I would love it. I would love it. What I learned is 5 principles that I brought into my life. And that's what I speak about and I coach from when people want coaching about creating more passion and power and purpose in their lives.
Right.
If they've lost their way, like I lost mine, looking great, but inside not feeling so great.
Right. I just want to acknowledge we have our friend here, Kenny, savor the flavor, the awesomeness of peace in the world. Kenny is an amazing man. He's from Texas, and he is our cheerleader here on LinkedIn.
Hi, Kenny.
Alrighty. So 5 principles that transform peace. So that sounds easy. Let's see how easy this really is, folks.
So that's the thing, right? These are going to sound really, really stupidly easy. Very, very simple to do.
I like simple.
But they're not that simple to do because we get all embroiled in our emotions. Mm-hmm. So the first one, again, sounds really simple, is listen. What does that mean? I listen to people all the time. I wish people would shut up. Well,
if you're saying that, you're not listening.
Right. It's making a listening of practicing coming from nothing, listening from nothing, listening for what could be there, listening for what is there over with the other person, listening without any judgment. And we are judgment-making machines all the time. There may be people right now listening to this going, "Ooh, I like how bright her pink top is," or "Why would anyone professional wear such a bright pink color?" Or, it doesn't matter. There's this voice in your head that's going all the time. Or, "Ooh, I like her short haircut," or, "Oh, I like Dorothy's background. What is that? Does that stand for Michigan back there?" Michigan, whatever. Or, listen. Come on, I know how to listen. So the key is to quiet that voice in your head that's always saying something, and listening for the treasure that might be there in whatever anyone else is saying. And believe me, I have discovered a clue when I'm not listening with my husband. And this is peculiar, I think, to my husband. I don't think I'd do it with anybody else. I start with the word why. And I imagine why goes with some body language. Why would, as opposed to being, so as I said, this is a practice. Mm-hmm. You never perfect it. You can get better and better and better at your practice. It's like meditation. No one is ever actually a master of meditation. They're always in the process of mastering meditation. Nice. And yeah, so you can look at your little body languages. It could be a set of your mouth or the set of your body, or, whether you have your arms crossed or not, or whether you're furrowing your brows, or could be any number of things. Could be a desire to run, just flee whoever is speaking.
If you have that problem, then, oh my gosh. Sometimes some of us have that at work. Yes. When the boss is in the room, we're fleeing. Yes. See ya, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Well, I myself, my reaction to conflict was to always try to make myself invisible. Mm-hmm. Like, shrink down, don't say anything, just let it roll over me. Maybe it'll go away. That was what I did. I did that without thought. It was an automatic reaction. And even today, when there's something that I consider a tough conversation for me or something, I have to remind myself that I don't have to do that anymore. And that if I just take on these 5 principles, that something wondrous can occur.
Exactly. I love that. And I'm writing notes as you're speaking. That's why I'm looking down, because I like to learn from each of my guests. And I love what you said about listen for the treasure. It's there, folks. You just have to listen. Yeah. Like Valerie said, that is key. If you didn't get anything else tonight, I think that's key. We'll wait for the other principles, but I'm sure that's key.
It is, definitely. The next principle, and all of these arise separately and together, all of these particular principles. The other principle that I learned and have adopted into my life is simply to look. Be willing to look. We only see what we see. I do an exercise with people in my live events where I have something that I have one person stand on one side, another person stand on one other side, and say what they see. Well, they don't see the same thing, and they will get in heated arguments about what is there. And then I have one person walk over to the other side. Oh, that really is red. And then they walk over to the other side. Oh, yeah, that does look like brown leather kind of thing. and to actually demonstrate how that is. Right. Or I love, there's a illustration, a black and white pencil illustration of an animal. And you'll ask people what that is. And some people will say it's a rabbit, and other people will say it's a duck. And it's very clearly a rabbit to the rabbit people and a duck to the duck people. And then I just have them shift a little bit, just shift, and the other animal appears. So it all depends. And it's the same illustration.
So it's all about the shift. That's what I'm getting from that. It's all about the shift.
About letting it in and taking your own blinders off and being willing to look from another person's perspective. Yep.
They had, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was on Facebook, it's come up a couple of times, where they have a pair of shoes. And some people, when they see them, they're white. And then some people, when they see them, they're, I think, like a light green or a pink. I can't remember what it is. But when it's, I guess, I don't know. I think it has something to do with the left or right side of the brain or something like that when they see it. And it neither is wrong or neither is right. It's just how that person sees it. I love my internet people. I'm sure Valerie back in just a minute, but I just love what she said. Looking at the shift, seeing things from different perspectives, and definitely listen for the treasure. This is good stuff, and I'm hoping that you are definitely getting notes on this, because it is gold, total gold information here, for sure. And Valerie, oops, we lost Valerie for a minute, but I'm sure she'll come back. But yes, if you're just tuning in tonight, it's a guest, Valerie Mrak, magnificent, miraculous, and I'm sure she'll be back in just a minute. Or just having a little bit of internet issues, and if you missed the first part, you'll definitely have to go back, because she was talking about how she actually met the Dalai Lama and had come face to face with the Dalai Lama and asked, where did he find his peace, and we have to find peace within ourselves, which is so true. And if we don't have peace within ourselves, then how can we have peace for others? And I know it's funny, because sometimes we can have inner peace in the hairiest of moments. And I know I've shared a little bit about what my week was like last week, where in the middle of my storm, I found peace all around me. As I'm in the hospital pretty much every other night with my dad and things like that. But there was just such a peace about it. God had definitely put his peace around me, and definitely, I was able to walk through that. So if you're in the comments, where do you find your peace? Would love to hear from you, and where you find your peace in the middle of your storms. Would totally love to hear from you about that. I don't know. Valerie, I think it's from Indiana, so I don't know if they're having a storm down there. I know Tennessee was having a storm, so maybe that's part of the problem. Yeah. Listening from nothing. That was one of the first principles that Valerie had talked about. And, where could that be true and listening without judgment? I know a lot of us sometimes just really sit in judgment, and instead of listening to what that person's actually saying, how are you listening? Are your arms crossed, like she said, or you listening with the intent that something's going to totally go wrong? What does that look like for you? And do you catch yourself up in moments with that? I'm just going to message Valerie here, see if she gets on here. But right now we'll take a moment with our.
Hello, my name is Dr. Matuziak, and I'm a holistic chiropractic physician practicing with integrated holistic healthcare in Wilmette, Illinois. I help people overcome their health conditions and achieve their health goals through natural healing holistic methods that are unique to each individual. I provide holistic care, which includes nutritional consultations, chiropractic care, and energetic healing modalities as well. I also wrote a book called Coordinating the Chaos, and that's targeted towards the newly postpartum mother who's trying to keep herself sane and her baby healthy holistically in that first year or so of life. That'll be available on Amazon shortly in the coming weeks, as well as on my website, ChristyMatuziakDC.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just waiting to hear back from Valerie, saying if she's coming back, if she's able to. So with that, we will just, what did you take out so far of what Valerie has said, if you were with us through this part here? And she is back. Yay!
I do not know why that happened. I am hardwired to my internet.
I'm glad it's yours and not mine, because I have my Wi-Fi right here and mine keeps circling and I'm trying to get a hold of the provider. So I'm glad it was. Oh, well, you're here. Yes. And this is what live TV is all about, folks. And this is real life, because how I like to say it is, crap happens. And in my life, it happens a lot. And this is just part of being an overcomer, rolling with the punches, and just going on. And hopefully I didn't ramble too much. But I was just reiterating, while we were waiting for Valerie to come back, I was just reiterating what you were said, going through the golden nuggets that you had laid here, with listening, with the intent to listen, holding no judgment, waiting for that treasure, and definitely looking to see what something is all about. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right. Then another one, I call them the 5 L's. Listen, look, and the third one, right, I said these arise separately as well as together. Mm-hmm. So they're not necessarily in one order. Another one of the L's is leap. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is when we're in conflict with someone, or we're avoiding having a conversation, or having a conversation with someone just makes you want to wring their neck. or
I love that.
Always feeling ineffective within the realm of these conversations that you're having or not having, is that sitting back and waiting and wishing and hoping. Wasn't there a song like that in the 60s or 70s? It never happens. Now, I'm not going to sing it for you, because that would just be.
It was on one of the Julia Roberts movies, wasn't it? Again. Where she was the bridesmaid. Yes. Her best friend's wedding or something like that. Sorry. Off on a bunny trail.
That's all right. Yeah. So it's up to you to make the leap. You make the first step. Especially if you're someone that identifies yourself as a leader, or someone that wants to be a leader. And it doesn't matter where you're leading your family, leading in your church, leading in your. All right, there's an internet thing going on here. Am I still with you?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Leading in your community organization, leading at work, leading in your business, whatever. If you're waiting for someone else to open up that important conversation that's going to take you to new territory, and I'm not talking about necessarily creative territory, but all kinds of creativity can happen when you give that up and make that leap. Instead of hanging on for dear life to whatever crevasse you feel like you're hanging on to, make the leap. Be the first one to listen to that person. When somebody feels listened to, they feel valued. When you're willing to look at somebody else's perspective, they feel listened to. Be willing to take the leap to do that.
Yes. I love that. I totally love what you just said, because if you're constantly talking over somebody else, they feel, like you said, totally devalued. Like, why am I even wasting my time here? And I have a rule that when I have a guest, the guest is the expert. And, that guest is the expert on what they're talking about. And, I don't step over that, because, like you said, there's different perspectives of different things. And, I bring in the experts, I bring in the guests, and I love what you said, because you never want anybody to feel devalued or anything like that, let alone, your guest speaker, for sure.
Yes. And again, if you were like me and would just shrink and not take the leap to even have the conversation, nothing is going to change. Nothing. It's going to stay the same.
Yeah. I love that. I totally love that.
I think when you take a leap, also, you're you're also showing compassion. And compassion is so important with people, especially now. Everybody's walking around like the walking wounded, and we have reason for that, right? We're coming out of the pandemic, we're coming out of and maybe still in turbulent political times, and just to be willing to make the leap to make that connection. And you can start out in little ways. You can start out talking to people you would never think you would talk to. Or the other day I ran my cart into somebody at the grocery store, and I would have normally said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And they probably would have said, "Oh, no problem," and then we would have gone our separate ways. And I decided to take a leap for myself. And I said, "Oh, fancy meeting you like this." And yeah, and she laughed, and we exchanged names and a few pleasantries, and we went on, and we both left with smiles on our faces. And it wasn't like "oh no," and kind of thing. So even with strangers, that can be true. So how much more important is that to do it with the people that are actually in our lives?
Right. I have a question for you, because I notice I think I do this subconsciously. The ones that are closest to me see the ugliest sides of me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's because correct me if I'm wrong, I feel comfortable with them and I don't think they're going to leave. Or I hope they don't leave. So therefore, we feel comfortable in that. So that's why they see the worst sides of us. But technically, truthfully, they should be seeing the best sides of us, because we're with them all the time. What are your thoughts on that?
That is a very, very good observation, Dorothy. For me, in my marriage of 11 years that was falling apart, just nothing was working. This man that I dearly loved, I suddenly couldn't see eye to eye with, and I had a whole lot of assumptions and assertions about who he was as a human being after 11 years. And of course, I was smelling great, according to myself. And then I began to notice whenever I'd start some impassioned conversation with him, he'd have a look on his face, kind of like it was dread. And I didn't even realize that I was on the attack. I called it passion.
Right.
But it wasn't passion. It was like I had to get my point across. And by golly, yeah.
That hurt a little bit. Sorry, Joe. He's in the front room. That's my husband.
Right. So I wasn't listening and I wasn't looking, right? Yes. I'm happy to say we've now been married more years than I can count. Almost 40.
Wow.
2022 will be our 40th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. And that would not have happened if I hadn't taken on practicing these principles, taking them on like my life depended on it. Because you know what? My marriage did depend on it.
Yes. And I know to me, a lot of good has come out of this pandemic because, it has taken, I've slowed down a little bit, but then I've also gained momentum on a lot of other stuff. But in the first beginning of it, when I slowed down, that's how I was able to really see what needed to happen in our relationships. And I have made it a point to be very intentional on being more communication with my husband, effective communication with my husband, and allowing him to be the man that he needs to be. Work in progress, people, work in progress. But I mean, just identifying that I needed to, let certain things go, seeing that, because, I waited 40 some odd years to get married. So, I mean, the chances of us being married for 50 years are probably slim to none, but whatever God has for us is obviously what it is. But, I want to make those good years. My parents have been married for 47 years and, I see their love and their commitment to each other. And that's what I want. And marriage is one of the hardest things I have ever done. But it's seeing what the other person needs and trying to fulfill that while still keeping part of yourself and not overstepping the boundaries that need to be put in place.
That's very good. And now I'm going to bring up another L, which is really, really essential. And that is love.
Ooh.
Now, I'm not talking about romantic love.
No.
I'm talking about the agape kind of love, like we're all in this together and everyone is struggling with something and recognize, I see you, another human being kind of love.
Right.
And that's one of the things that really impressed me about the Dalai Lama and also impressed me about the Nobel Peace Prize winners, the people who were average citizens who made a stand, and about the former gang leaders, former violent offenders that I worked with, is that their ability to laugh was right there, right underneath the surface, or not even underneath the surface, right at the surface. And it was the laughter of compassion, if you can say, recognizing that laughter or love. I said love. Well, okay, the last L is laughter. but love and laughter and listening and looking and leaping all work together, right? So love is really important. And I think when you're a leader too, again, no matter how that leadership looks in your life, whether you're a leader in your family or a leader of your friends or a leader at work, just being willing to look at the humanity of the people that you are either serving or leading or working with, or all of those all at once, is really, really important.
Right. I love that. And I think in some workplaces, humanity is a basic skill that everybody is lacking. And I made this comment today that if you treat the janitor any different than you treat the CFO, it's your problem, not theirs. Because you should all be treated equally. We're all human beings, whether you scrub or toilet or you own the company,
Right. Absolutely. And that's so important. And sorry to say that is something that we have inherited through decades of workplace rules and what's right in the workplace and what's not in the workplace. And I've talked to many business leaders who are very successful. And the one thing that I've noticed in common about these people that are really successful is that they had compassion. They had that agape kind of love. They honored every single person that worked for them. Everybody that worked for them was a member of their teams. And the whole team moved the company forward.
I love that. We used to have team meetings where from every division of the company, I work for a greenhouse. Mm-hmm. So if there was somebody in sales, somebody in accounting where I'm at, there was somebody off the floor, a group leader off the floor. And, we would all have these meetings and, we go through different questions. We were to air our legitimate complaints, not just, but you also had to come with a solution. Yeah. And that's what I love. Yes, you can sit there all day long and bitch, complain, moan, and whatever, but you need to have a solution to go along with that, to offer that. Your boss will not hear you if you don't come with a solution. So come with a solution. I love that.
Right. Be your own leader.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the final L, as I said, is laugh. And even the Dalai Lama, it was so funny. Well, he's famous for his laugh. And a lot of people think that he laughs to put people off guard. And I spent enough time with him. Oh, for instance, something, again, I'll never forget. There was a lot of incense in his office in India, just full of beautiful tonkas and lots of Tibetan incense. And I'm very allergic. And the windows were closed. It's February, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm choking out a question. And then I'm like, to keep from coughing during his answers.
Right.
And after about the third question, he looked at me and he started and laughing and putting too much incense, and had his assistant open the windows to clear the incense out of the room. And it was just such a generous act, and one to put me at ease. And he used his laughter to do that. Like, yes, we're in this same boat.
Right.
Yes.
I love that. Oh, wow.
Also, when we laugh together, we're not like, I'm not talking about like laughing at anybody, but laughing with someone. You know, I just don't think there's no possibility of having hierarchy when you're laughing. Everybody is the same, and there's just nothing there except the joy of the moment. And laughter to me is a real key for peace. If you are too serious and can't see the humanity and humor in the issue and the boat that we're all in, then your leadership isn't going to be as strong, and you aren't going to be as compassionate.
Right. And I love that. And that's one of the things that I had to work on, because when I grew up, like I think everything that was going around me, it was complete chaos, parents that were chronically ill, being bullied, low self-esteem, everything is like a snowball effect, right? Yeah. So for me, I grew up quickly because I had to. So therefore I was constantly serious. I was the oldest grandchild. I was the oldest child. So I had tons of responsibility on top of me, or I took that responsibility on, let's just say it that way. And as a result, I was very serious. And then I finally meet my husband 40 years later, and he is like, everything's a joke to him. And I'm like, why is everything a joke to you? And so I will have to say, over the 4 years that we've been together, I have toned him down a bit, but he's brought me up, like in the sense of that, to like loosen up. And my thing since I hit 40 is all about fun. So that's what I try to do. I make everything fun. And if I can't make it fun, then I don't want to do it, because I spent so many years of my life being serious and not having fun, that it's just like, that's all about it. Like my 40th birthday, all my in-laws were out. My husband comes from a family of 19 immediate people, or immediate family members. We were outside having a water balloon fight for my 40th birthday. I mean, like, serious. They all thought I was weird at first, but then they were like, that's a good idea. We should do that again. And then COVID hit really hard, so we haven't been able to get back together again. But
you hit on a really important point, I think. You said that growing up, you were a certain way. And me too. You took things very seriously. I just tried to, I'm a second child. And I'm the second girl, and then all boys after me. So, I mean, I just felt like I didn't count. I wasn't, so that's a very, very, very young conversation. It gets formed very early in your life. As soon as you have a sibling born or whatever, you have these conversations to deal with the things in your life. And when you're a child, you usually feel powerless. And those conversations, end up being you keep them when you go into adulthood, and you use them every time you're in a situation that maybe doesn't feel powerful. Now, some people are people that like to get in there and fight because they like to win. Well, that's no better, because they don't know how to listen and look and laugh and leap and love either.
Right.
So it's really, really important to grow up those conversations, so you can practice these principles.
Right. And that is so good, you know. And if you are a new parent listening to this, please adapt those skills. So it's cheaper in therapy to get your kids right now than when they're 40 years old. Let me tell you, it seems a lot of heartache for you and your child.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting that you should say that too, Dorothy, because that's certainly one thing I saw in the Tibetan community, that any of the Tibetan communities that I have been involved in. The Dalai Lama, of course, is Tibetan. And I spent a lot of time at the Tibetan community in Chicago, some in the Tibetan community in Seattle, and of course the Tibetan community in Dharamsala in India. And I watched them with their children, and I watched adults with children, period. There's one example. There's the Tibetan Children's Village, like 500 kids come here. Some are sent from Tibet to be taught, and parents may never see their child again in their lifetime, but they want them to be raised close to the Dalai Lama.
Right.
This teacher, who's a monk, so, you know, he set the stage for how what I was able to witness other parents do. He was the head of the school, and these little kids, I think they were probably 3 or 4 years old, were fighting over some toys, a little boy and a little girl. And he gets down on their level, and he talks very quietly to them. And he's talking to them about how to the little girl that stole the toy from the little boy, and the little boy's crying now. See, this is the result of what you did. Wouldn't you, you don't want Dorji to have that, to be unhappy, do you? You know, and the little girl's looking at him and looking at Dorji, and she looks at the toy, and then she hits Dorji over the head with it. And he didn't raise his voice. He didn't slap her. He didn't grab the toy away and say, now you can't have that. You know, you don't deserve that, or whatever. He just kept talking very quietly and said, basically, you know, that wasn't, you wouldn't use this on a 4-year-old, but, you know, that wasn't a productive thing to do, you know, kind of thing. And invited them to play together. And it probably took about 20 minutes.
Wow.
But the little girl handed Dorji the toy back, and then they began to play together. And you don't see that. You see a child and a parent in the grocery store, and the child wants something, and the parent in our culture, you know, gets very, very impatient and will slap the kids' hands and yell at them or put them in the cart or whatever. Mm-hmm. And over and over and over again, I witnessed just this incredibly beautiful, uncommon patience and love. Oh my gosh, it was love. It's like, I am teaching this child how to be in the future. And that's one thing in our culture I think we often lose sight of in the moment, in our super, super, super busy lives. I'm not blaming anybody for this. It's the lives we lead and the culture we live in, and the fact that we didn't learn how to grow up our conflict conversations.
Yes.
And so we visit them on our children when we haven't grown them up.
And that is so true, because, oh my gosh, you hit a nail like on the head. So I have a 9-year-old stepson, and I was not blessed to have any of my own, but that's okay. And so the poor child has like 4 different people that, you know, he gets teachings from.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up very strict. Mm-hmm. You do as I say. Mm-hmm. You don't talk back. If I said no the first time, you don't ask the second time. And very structured. My husband is the only boy of 4 children. Mm-hmm. And since he was the last and the only boy, he got away with a lot of different stuff. That's all I'm saying. And the mom is kind of similar to me. I think I might have had a little bit more stricter upbringing, and then the stepdad is happy-go-lucky. You know, just everything is wonderful. And so there's 4 different parents involved in 4 different styles. And it's just like, I feel bad for him. But then I was like, when the pandemic hit and I was homeschooling with him at home, I was like, this kid just does not listen. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling so frustrated. And I'm like, you know, Dad. And my dad said to me, he goes, there is no way you could raise a child today how I raised you back then. I'm like, but that's all I know. So how do I go about this? Because that's all I know. And that was just like, when he told me that, it's like my jaw dropped. And I'm like, who is this man that's my father now? Because that wasn't you 40 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, you know something, did you ask your stepson?
I try and reason with him, and I try and, like, when I feel that I'm getting anxious, I will take a step back. I'll just say, okay, you go do what you have to do. I'll be back in a minute. And I have to go regroup, because I know that it's for him as well. It's beneficial for both of us. Yeah. Let's put it that way. But I've asked him what he needs and what he wants and things like that, and how to better communicate with him. And, you know, he's 9 and hasn't been around his friends for almost 2 years now. So because of the pandemic. So, because they're in and out of school all the time, you just get them in there and then they're yanked back out. So yeah, it is difficult. It's difficult on us, as I can just imagine what they're going through inside them. Right.
Yep.
So.
Are you hearing that noise in the background?
No, but then again, I'm hard of hearing. So
I was going to get up and just shut the door.
But, I don't hear it.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Yeah, bringing up kids in today's world is a new deal. It's absolutely a new deal. And using the 5 principles to learn to negotiate how to do that when it's not been done before. Well, it has been done before. It's been done when the schoolhouse, you couldn't get to the schoolhouses, or, you know, people were taught at homes, but not in this modern world. So you're really inventing something new and creating something new day by day by day.
Yes. And I do feel sorry for the teachers too, because I mean, it has to be hell on them. I mean, it's hell on our kids, it's hell on them. And that's why we're like, we had an option to continue to homeschool or to put them back in. And we're like, no, you need to go be with friends. You need to socialize. Yeah. That's what a child needs. A child needs socialization. Yeah. You know, not to be stuck in front of a computer for 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever it was.
Right. Well, yeah. And the pandemic is just like nothing we've ever experienced ever before. Really. I mean, yeah.
And hopefully never again.
Yeah, absolutely. So even when we were living rural lives and things, we had our small communities and our church gatherings and, you know, the various things that people would do with one another. So we might be isolated for a certain time, but we could come together. And this complete abandonment of what we know as tribal people, as communal people, we need each other.
Yes.
And that's really, really important to remember in creating peace, power, and possibility, is we need each other.
Yes. And it's funny that you said that, because since the pandemic hit, I have found my tribe, which I would never have found without the pandemic. And my tribe actually lives in Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. So I have not seen these ladies in person. We meet every Saturday, and two of them have become, like, they're all good friends, but two of them have become like my sisters, right? So then when my dad recently got sick again, it was just like they were there for me. They've been praying, like the whole team's been praying, but these two sisters have like really stepped up and really have been there for me, and like, hey, checking up on me daily. How are you doing? You know, stuff like that. And I like you said, you need that sisterhood, or you need that, we need each other. And it has brought us out of, I'm not going to say depression, but I mean, we all get into our moments where, you know, the voice inside our head talks, and then, you know, you try and quiet that voice. And so, you know, having other people around you, that's what you need. And they don't have to be in the same room, although that's nice, because sometimes to reach out and hug somebody, that's nice. But I mean, right now we got to do what we got to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. So we had Carl here. Carl says, wonderful conversation, ladies. Thanks, Carl, for joining us. I can't believe the hour has almost gotten by already.
I know. I feel like we could talk for another hour.
I know. We'll have to have you come back on, Valerie, for sure. You know, I just thank you to our guests for joining us, and thank you again, Valerie, for definitely imparting your wisdom and sharing what the inner workings and the inner peace of the Dalai Lama. I just think that's incredible, and hopefully one day I'll be able to go there. That just sounds like incredible. And you know, is there any last words that you want to leave our guests with, or anything like that?
Oh, I had a quote. Let me see if I don't have it with me.
And our friend Susan is joining us today. She says she enjoys us both as well.
Oh, great. Thank you, Susan. Nice that you're here. One thing that I like a lot, a quote that is one of my favorite quotes, is from Gandhi. Who else, right? Gandhi. And that is to be the change you want to see in the world.
Oh, I love that. And this world needs change. Yes. And that's why I'm changing daily. It's totally, for me anyways, I've used this time to really connect with myself and connect with a person that I know God wants me to be. And that's what all of these last almost 2 years has been about, is connecting with that person and being the change. Yes. You know, and reaching out and helping others, because that's what this show is all about. It's making sure people don't feel alone, so that they know that they can, you know, they can come here, and my situation is no different than anybody else. It's just, I'm willing to share about it, because there's all people been bullied, and a lot of people have low self-esteem, and a lot of people have anxiety and depression. A lot of people, unfortunately, have lost family members due to suicide. Yeah. And a lot of people have elderly parents that weren't so elderly when they originally got sick, but here we are, right? Yeah. And by sharing that and sharing the love and sharing, you know, a peace, because everybody right now needs peace. That's why this conversation, I believe, was so important to have tonight, especially in the middle of the storm. So I truly thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It. Yes. Anything else, Val? Anything else? Last words?
Well, there's another quote, actually, from an American philosopher, one of my favorite, Ralph Waldo Emerson, that is very apropos to this conversation. And that is that the only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be.
Ooh. Both of those are good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And because I want people to know, you have a book out.
I do. Yes.
Is it part of
Overcoming
the
Mediocrity. Let's see
Okay.
if I have it here. I have Kimberly's book, and I have here's mine. Okay. Yes, it's called Overcoming Mediocrity: Victorious Women,
Okay.
and that's me right there.
There we go.
Yes. And it tells a little bit more of my story, some of my childhood, and some of the other adventures that I've been on, and overcoming my own mediocrity. Right. That's what all the stories in this book are. That.
Right.
And
can they get if they got in touch with you, could they get a copy of your book, or how do they get a copy of your book?
Yeah, actually, they can go to my website, which is. Do you want me to?
If you want to say it, I can type it in for you.
Okay. So it's like my last name, M as in Mary, R as in Robert, AK, miraculous.com. www.miraculous.com.
Perfect.
Yes. And you can also, if you like, you can download 10 tips, the top 10 tips for transforming conflict to create peace, power, and possibility. You can download that. That's free download.
Valerie's site. Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the comments too for them to look for. And you know what? This might only be showing up on YouTube for some reason. So if you wanted to go into the comments on either LinkedIn and Facebook and put it in the comments too, just in case I spelled it wrong.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Also, I'm doing something called the Miraculous Minute, MRAKULOUS, the Miraculous Minute, which on LinkedIn right now, specifically, that are little tips from the 10 tips for transforming conflict.
Awesome. That is definitely get in touch with Valerie. We have our friend Jenny Gould with us as well. So yes, definitely head over to Valerie's website, get those top 10 tips. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I have like a whole bunch of notes here. And that I am like a lot of aha moments and a lot of ooh moments and a lot of moments that I have to work on. I'm a work in progress, even after 45 years, people. But with that, I just want to say again, thank you, Valerie. Oh, we have another guest here. Listen, look, leap, love, laughter. Success comes out of humanity and compassion. Equal solutions, laughter, the equalizer to peace, treasure chest of the knowledge. Wow.
Wow.
We have another person that definitely was taking notes. I love that.
Me too. And thank you, Dorothy, also. This is such a wonderful program. And I've loved going back and listening to some and look forward to the future.
Yes, for sure. We'll definitely have you on again because we'll do like a take 2 so you can just share more because you have so much knowledge here that it's insane, insanely good. Insanely good. And thank you for those kind words. And with that, everybody have a great evening, and I'll be right with you, Valerie.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.